What kind of learner are you? This is important. Most people use one learning channel, but if we use more than one learning channel, we can increase the memory tremendously. This is called neuroplasticity because as we make more connections, we can get more information in and out of the long-term memory. So what happens? You have something which is called a short-term memory. Now, short-term memory, the information comes in, like this pencil, and then it comes up to something called a critical factor. Now, the critical factor is going to determine whether or not it can go past the critical factor into the long-term memory. So if the critical factor says, no, I don't think this should go into long-term memory, that's it, it comes out. The critical factor says, okay, fine, we'll send it into long-term memory. It can go past into the long-term memory. This means that anything in your short-term memory is limited to the certain amount of factors. One is the fact that there's very limited storage capacity. Each channel, sensory channel, that is smell, gustatory or taste, visual, auditory, and touch or kinesthetic. 5 channels that we know you can use. There's probably more. We're only finding out a little bit about this now because science is very exciting in this area. So what do we do? Well, something called whole brain learning. Whole brain learning is when you use all your channels. And sometimes even the emotional channel needs to be used for whole brain learning. Well, that's beyond this course. But I do think that we need to touch on these items such as kinesthetic, visual, auditory, gustatory, and also olfactory in order to see if we can help you expand your channels. All it takes is practice. And practice is the one thing that you can do every single day, not necessarily just when you're studying for exams. Start using these techniques that you will learn in the next few modules and put them into play on a daily basis. And I promise you, people will start saying, wow, but you have the most amazing memory. And it's not. It's just techniques. But techniques help the memory to improve. And as the memory improves, so your memory gets better. So let's have a look at what kind of learner are you? Most students tell me they have to learn in total silence. And that normally is a giveaway. Because exam rooms are never totally silent. Unless you're writing on your own in a carpeted room, they're normally quite noisy. And this distracts many of the exam takers. Now, I tell people, rather learn your material in the place you're going to put it into practice. Well, in a manner that's similar to the way you're going to put it in practice. Although I hope that doesn't mean that's going to be in a crowded bar or in front of the television. Successful exam writing techniques involve acclimatizing the student to sound, rather than allowing them to have total silence. My students at work, a lot of them did very, very badly in the exams before I came into the scene. And it was very easy to see why. During the courses, I'd notice their reaction towards sound. And if their eyes moved or if they looked towards the sound, I knew I had a student that was very sensitive to sound. So I made those students write test exams in stairwells, in coffee shops, and in other areas to break this habit. I never did this more than 5 times, as they became used to the sounds around them, and filtered them out quite successfully after that. If sound bothers you, then this will be a problem in most exam rooms, and people coughing and getting up and general sounds can stop you from concentrating. So the best thing to do is get used to sound. Study with noise, such as a radio station, playing in the background, or the normal everyday noise around you to acclimatize you to filtering out that sound. Our next step that we have to look at is timing. When you study, you should be fully awake and fully aware So when is your energy at its highest? That's when you must study your most difficult courses at your high energy times. Are you sharpest early in the evening? Well, study your most difficult course then. Remember to study in 30 to 45 minutes increments. Then take a break. Don't try and do a marathon run of studying. When you take a break, get up and do something that's active for the 5 minutes you're going to have a break. Go to the bathroom. Get yourself something to drink. Go for a quick run. Do what you have to do in order to get that body moving. But while you're doing that, summarize what you've just been studying. Make sure that although you've left the area, you still have gone over all that you've done. That way you'll know that you'll need to do X, Y, and Z still when you come back. I used to turn around and say to my dogs, come, let's go for a walk. And then I used to talk to my dogs and tell them everything that I'd studied and how I'd studied and how difficult that part was. And I would realize what I had to go back and study. I had the most educated dogs in the world. I think they enjoyed it. Or maybe they just enjoyed the walks, I'm not quite sure. But either way, my dogs certainly knew how to do financial studies. When you come back, focus on what you're going to cover for the next session before you sit down, and then get right back in there and start studying again. Scientists have told us there's two different types of learning. One is abstract, thinking about things removed from facts, and the other one is concrete, smell, sight, touch, taste, and hearing. Abstract means that you have to understand ideas, qualities, notions, and concepts which cannot be seen, whereas the concrete learning is done through the 5 senses. Now, brain imaging has shown us that learning styles use different parts of the brain to understand abstract or concrete learning. Preferred learning styles change the way you internally represent experiences, the way you recall information, and even the words you choose. Research shows us that if we involve more of the brain during learning, we remember more of what we learn. There's a lot of information about studying, and the following techniques were some of them that I used for my students. So what is your learning method? Well, your learning method may be social. That's the limbic system, has lots to do with the emotions, moods, and aggression. Social people are active. They need encouragement to digest information, and they work best as a group. Unfortunately, they can be disruptive and they can lose focus very fast. Then we have our solitary learner. This is the person who enjoys doing it alone. If they do work as a group, they'll get very irritated if they're not all focused on the outcome. We then have a couple of learning styles. One is reflexive. That means you need time to think things through. Normally reflexives work best in a group, so they're more social. If you're a global learner, you like to see the whole idea, but you have difficulty in looking at the smaller parts. These are the people that normally answer the question correctly, but you have no idea of how you got there. Logical learners learn one level on top of another, point by point methodology. If they can't understand the underlying concept, they can't understand the concept. End of story. They need a rehearsing method, which is practical as opposed to knowledge regurgitation. Once they understand the method, there's no stopping these people. Intuitive people either get it or they don't. They look for meaning, and they're more conceptual and innovative and prefer theoretical information. They need to cross-check themselves with questions in order to explain the concepts and ideas that they've learned and put them into the correct answering methodologies, because quite often they can go off at a little bit of a tangent. We now understand that if you can use all the senses, you supercharge your short-term memory, which has different channels for each of the 5 senses. What are the 5 senses? Well, there's visual, there's auditory, there's gustatory, there's olfactory, and there's kinesthetic. Now please, repeat after me. I can do this. No, we are not going to have a positive self-talk course. What we're going to do is make self-affirmations, positive statements of intent that can help us visualize ourselves overcoming that exam preparation or on-the-day challenge. A lot of people sabotage themselves. Mental rehearsal gets your brain to rewire itself in order to help you behave and respond in the desired way. Active reviews of material beat rereading 100% of the time, for instance, when it comes to memory recall. Just as a side to that, studies on learning show you retain about 10% of what you read. Oh yes, you'll forget far more than you remember if you just read it. The very act of transferring will greatly increase your retention of the material, by up to 90% in some cases. Transferring material, not a verbatim copying, to notes is very useful, as you get a great understanding of the material, and it enables you to test your knowledge and determine which aspects require additional work. Now, when you start to study, please try not to cross your arms and legs. Posture should be upright. Whole brain learning is probably a bit of a misnomer, but learning with your memory style can immensely help with learning. Short-term memory in particular can benefit from sensory learning because it uses extra channels. Now, normal short-term memory only has 9 things which you can remember with ease. Some cultures a little more, some cultures even a little less. Using sensory methods can increase this effectiveness in the adult learner, who is often a solitary individual with no access to others studying the same material. To sum up, using a sensory approach to learning can help, and this will extend the memory capacity, especially in the short-term memory area, since different channels are used for different senses. We learn concrete knowledge with our senses. We learn abstract knowledge through the understanding of ideas, notions, and concepts. We have various study methods which can make us more effective in our study of material. These are social, or we could be solitary. The learning process can be reflexive, global, or logical, or intuitive. Sound bothers some exam writers in the exam by distracting them terribly. These people are advised to acclimatize themselves to sound rather than insisting on silence when they study. Your posture when you study is very important. Do not cross your arms and legs, and pay attention to your posture when studying. Using a comfortable process can help your learning immensely, as you then understand how you are comfortable in processing information for maximum efficiency.